So let us start this chapter on gravitation. This is literally a very interesting chapter and in many points, in many ways, a turning point in our understanding of science. Now, the idea of gravity that was given by an Indian mathematician and astronomer. His name is Brahma Gupta. I don't know whether you know him or not. Acha, after today or before that? Good. So Brahma Gupta was a genius astronomer and mathematician who first observed the gravitational effect and made a commentary about that. Do you need to prove that you breathe? It's not like that. He did not specifically take out the mathematics. That is accredited to Newton after that. So what is the significance of Newton here? Newton was that super brilliant chap who brought the language of gravity mathematically. How beautiful is that? When you understand, well, this may be a very common fact for all of you today, but in those times it was not. Especially when you saw that the force that caused any object to fall on the earth is the same force that is binding all the planets and the stars together. This is in fact one of the most interesting observations. This idea led to the universal law of gravitation. So all the detail about gravitation, its properties, its ways, and how Newton handled it, how did he get the insight, and some other properties related in context to this, we shall study in this chapter. Is this clear? Now let us start from the history of this. As I said, you know that apple falling story, right? I won't repeat it again. You probably know that better than me. So, this Newton argued by his series of very minute observations and experiments that every object in the universe attracts each other. Every object. Object means something having mass. Attracts each other by a force. And this force is exactly what we know today as the gravitational force. Are you getting my point? This is a purely attractive force. Gravity can never repel. Okay? Like the tension force in a string cannot push, it can only pull. Did you ever see any string pushing some object? Because it cannot. I'm talking about string. String means shuta. So string can only pull because the tension force there, the nature of that is of creating a tension, a stretching. Similarly, gravitational force is only attractive in nature, no matter what. So now we have defined the idea of a force that is called as gravitational force that causes so many interactions around planets, around solar systems, around galaxies, and even in the minutest scales here. This gravitational force, we defined it, but now the moment we define something, we cannot go ahead with it unless we quantify it, unless we make it into a quantity, unless we can measure it. So therefore, Newton had to find out the laws that could show that how two objects when placed in front of each other behaves. This law, which shows the relationship between the positions of the objects and the force between them, is called the universal law of gravitation. Now, can anybody answer me one question? If I ask, why is this called universal law of gravitation? So this is very simple. The name universal law of gravitation means the same law that will hold in this planet will hold in any other planet in our universe. We don't know about others, but in our universe, it holds true. This is called the universal law of gravitation. Now see how brilliantly he generalized everything. We cannot even probably step out from our country soon. At that time, during the plague, the great plague that happened in London and other areas, he sat and he discovered something which is valid throughout the universe. And it is very surprising how human minds can decipher such phenomena, can decipher such symmetry and patterns. Now let us have a look into this universal law of gravitation. How many universes are there? Who knows, right? how can we know? There is no way to know. There is no way to know. We never had light coming from any other universes. Simply there is no way to know. Well, just because you can see black and white does not mean there is no other color. These are topics on which huge amount of researches are ongoing. Had it been this simple, science would not have been such interesting. Science is interesting only because it is so complex and intricate in terms of what it gives you as a result for intellectual realization. So somebody asked me about some question regarding the weight of light and blah blah blah. So when I was explaining this thing, this is the one thing that I told him, that we don't have answers to the most fundamental questions that we have. Maybe the questions are wrong, and maybe it is not necessary to know the answers. You can still live very well and fulfilled life without knowing all the answers. Do you know what would happen if you have all the answers to all the questions? On the contrary, our life would become terribly boring. Our life is interesting only because there is some higher aspirations to catch on to. There are many things that we don't know. We are searching, we are finding, we are using our mind, our body, our emotions, our energies. This is the dynamics of life. Imagine that you know everything about every given instant, everything. Your life would be utterly boring. You would have nothing to search, you would have nowhere to go, you would have nowhere to find. There would be no meaning of life. There could be no meaning of life that you can find. Because there are so many unknown things that are yet not in your hand, you go in exploration. That makes the meaning of life. Isn't it so? So it's not necessary that you have answers to all the questions. And maybe there are also questions that we ask. Maybe the questions itself are wrong. We are not even understanding this because our bias is so deep rooted that we may not even understand that we are asking the wrong questions. Anyway, coming to the universal law of gravitation. So what does it imply? First of all, it says that when the masses are bigger, the gravitational forces is more. Isn't it so? This is a very common observation. The force with which sun pulls earth around itself is huge. And this is simply because there is some relation of the masses of the planets with the gravitational force. Newton argued, suppose you have mass m1 and mass m2 here. So if the product m1 m2 is more, the gravitational force between them is also more. So the gravitational force is proportional to m1 m2. Are you getting my point? If one mass is more, one mass is less, it's all right, that does not matter. But the product of masses, that means the more chunk of masses that you have, the more will be the gravitational force between them. Are you getting me? This is the first statement. What is the second statement? The second statement is one very interesting thing. See, the gravitational force recedes away as you go far away, isn't it so? Do you see that? Now, it is very interesting to note that the gravitational force decreases very rapidly over distance. If you increase the distance by twice, the gravitational force would decrease 4 times. If you increase the distance thrice, the gravitational force would decrease by 9 times. From here, you have the gravitational force proportional to 1 by r square, inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the two centers. Are you getting me? That's what I explained. That if the distance between them is doubled, the force is 1/4. If the distance between them is tripled, the force becomes 1/9. This is how fast it will reduce. Are you getting my point? This is an experimental observation. And how did he guess this? This is the inverse square law. Now you might have asked, you might ask that it is not r cube, it is not r to the power 4, it is not 1 by r. Why is it r square? Where did Newton get this inspiration from sitting in his home? This is what I shall discuss right now. Okay? But a little bit later. Where from he drew the inspiration? The man from whom he drew this inspiration, his name was Johannes Kepler. Did you hear his name? Johannes Kepler was a brilliant astronomer. We shall talk about him, okay? But before that, let us assimilate these results into the universal law of gravitation. Let us assimilate the results. So assimilating these two results, can we say that force is proportional to m1 m2 by r square? Can we say this, right? Now, to replace this proportionality by equality, we need what? We need a constant. That constant is known as the universal gravitational constant. This g that you are seeing here, this simple g, this is one of the fundamental constants in our universe. There are 17 constants as far as I remember, I guess. There are 17 universal constants like speed of light. There are 17 constants in the universe which never change. Permeability, permittivity, speed of light. One of them is this universal gravitational constant. So how can we define this? See, if m1 is equal to 1, m2 is equal to 1, and r is equal to 1, can you see that F is equal to g? So technically universal gravitational constant is the force between two objects of mass 1 kg separated by 1 meter. Technically. Are you getting this? This is just to get the feel of what the G is. Is that clear? So when very balanced experiments were conducted, very balanced, very subtle experiments were conducted, the value of G was found out to be 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11 Newton meter square per kg square. This much Newton will be the amount of force if you have two masses of 1 kg lying at a distance of 1 meter to each other. Now, let me take this thing one level deeper. Are you ready? This is not in the scope of book, but just for your interest, I thought that I can speak about this. So, are you seeing the value of this G universal gravitational constant? How small is this? Had it been a little bigger, universe would have collapsed. There would have been no universe because the forces between two particles would be more. If the force between two particles are more, it will just collapse. The universe won't exist the way we are seeing it right now. This universal gravitational constant, maybe the universe would have formed in a completely different way then. In a completely different way, in ways that is unimaginable for us. The physical properties of that universe would have been thoroughly different. Every matter that would have existed there would have been thoroughly different. Everything. Are you getting my point? This is how much subtle and necessary is this exact value of this gravitational constant for us to exist in this way in this universe. Are you getting my point? This is not in the scope of the book, just for some discussion. And what if the universal gravitational constant would have been a little loose? Well, if it had been a little loose, it may have been possible that the universe would have just splashed out. There would have been no force to grab the galaxies, to grab and form the solar systems. Maybe there would not exist any force at the first place. Are you getting my point? So anyway, so this is how important this universal gravitational constant is. So you have a very beautiful formula, and the credit goes entirely to Newton for this brilliant discovery, that you have any two masses, you have the distance between them, you plug it in the formula, you get how much gravitational force will act between them. Is not this a very beautiful formula? Very powerful formula also. Okay. So now, can anybody explain to me how the unit of gravitational constant came out to be Newton meter square per kg square? No, that is not my point. I have asked you, wait a minute. I have asked you, Syed, that how do you decide the unit of this G, capital G, the unit, not the value, the unit? Very simple. Yes. Anybody wants to try? Olivia? No. I am telling you the unit, about the unit. How do you derive it? No, not you, Bishesh. Wait a minute. You come at last. Surjendu? Because it is a gravitational constant value. No. Value is okay. But why this unit? No. Like you have force, the unit of force is Newton, kg meter per second square. Like that you have the unit of gravitational constant, universal gravitational constant, as Newton meter square per kg square. Why is this bizarre unit? But how does it matter? I am asking about the unit. If you are told to derive the unit, SI unit of capital G, what would you say? This is so simple, right? Can you write G as F R square by M1 M2? Yes. Everybody? Yes. So what is the unit of force? Newton. What is the unit of this length? Radius. Radius is meter. So meter square divided by M1 M2. What is M1 and M2? Ankita? Ankita? M1 M2, what will be the unit? What will be the unit of M1 into M2? Kg and kg. 2 kgs make kg square, right? Kg square. So Newton meter square by kg square. Are you seeing this unit here, everybody? Yes, sir. Here from this comes. Okay? Okay. So now, you know what? You know a formula by which you can calculate the gravitational force between any two objects situated at a distance apart, at some distance away from each other. Now, can you do one simple project or an assignment, a simple assignment? Calculate the gravitational force between the sun and the earth. Yes. Okay. Let me tell you the parameters then, okay? These are real life stuffs. These are not any mambo jumbo. Yes, Ankita. Okay. 1.989 into 10 to the power 30 kg. Radius is 695,700 kilometer. And let me tell about the Earth. Mass 5.972 into 10 to the power 24 kg, and radius radius of Earth 6371 kilometer. Now using these real values, you may use calculator. Using these parameters, calculate the gravitational force between the sun and the Earth. Okay, elliptical orbit. Yes. Let me give you the distance. Let me give you the average distance. 152.09 million kilometer. This is the distance between sun and Earth. Now solve it. All the parameters that you need, you have here. Remember to not miss out on the SI units. Okay. 21.
3.573 into.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Do you want me to solve this? Shall I? I mean, I would solve the answer. I would find out the answer. I have no problem in that. So F is equal to G is 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11. See, this piece of information is totally unnecessary in this question. Okay? Because we have the distance between them. We have the mass of them and the distance between them. That's enough. 1.989 into 10 to the power 30 into 5.972 into 10 to the power 24 divided by R square is here 695,700 into 1000 meter into 6371 into 1000, because everything has to be in meters. Do you agree to this? Now you just have your part of calculation to be done. There is a little bit of calculation that is left here. So that is 10 to the power 54 minus 11 is, yes, you should. 54 minus 11 is 43. 43 and 678. How much is your answer coming out to? I guess this will reduce it. Wait. 2 zeros, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 zeros are gone. So this will be 10 to the power 27. So now let me use the calculator. I did something really stupid. Very sorry. I told you that the radiuses won't be of any use and I put the radius down. I don't know which company manufactured me as an idiot. Okay. You should have told me. 0.09 into 10 lakh. 10 lakh means 10 to the power 6. This you have squared. So how much ever the answer is, what is the answer? That is the distance between sun and earth. No, you don't need to make things so complicated. I have given you an average distance between sun and earth. Why average? Because it is never the same. It is an elliptical trajectory. Okay. So an average distance, this will do. This does to a great deal. So what is your answer finally? We don't need so much of accuracy. What is your 10 to the power? 28 Newton. Anybody coming with this answer? Okay, does not matter. It's just a matter of calculation. I mean, this is how you would calculate the forces between two objects. Is this clear to you? In this formula, in this universal law of gravitation, is anybody of you having any kind of doubt? Then let me discuss this. I told you that this formula, how did Newton know exactly this? Was derived, was inspired from Johannes Kepler. Yes? So basically, Kepler was the astronomer, the mathematician who was studying these planetary movements. Yes, who were studying these planetary movements in detail. So with that, just like Newton has 3 laws of motion, Kepler also have 3 laws of the planetary dynamics. This is important. These are called as Kepler's law of motion. Okay. Now, can you tell me how many laws of motion are there? There are 3 laws of motion in Kepler. Okay. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. There are several laws that are used for several purposes. Okay. Like Kepler himself, he packed out 3 laws of motion to describe the entire planetary motion, and this was awesome. This was awesome. So his first law was that, first of all, the idea was the geocentric model got its place first of all. Just till Galileo, nobody was ready to accept that Earth was revolving. The heliocentric model, accepting the heliocentric model took so much of time. Then it was suggested that no, in round circles, the planets move around the sun. But as Kepler observed, as his calculation have shown, that planets move around elliptical orbits around the sun. Okay. So this is the first law. The orbit of an ellipse, the orbit of a planet is an ellipse with the sun at one of the foci. Now, what is an ellipse? I guess you are familiar with this shape. This has detailed mathematical implications when you get into class 11. Okay, this is how an ellipse looks like. Ellipse has these 2 focus. These are called as foci or focus. What is the property of this focus? How are these arranged? Like if you take a string and just tighten it like this, this is one string, and if you hold a pen and move it, it will form an ellipse. Are you getting my point? Let me show you an animation. See this. Are you seeing this?
Yes,
if
sir.
I stop at any point, see this total length is constant. You can assume it to be one string. If you tighten the string and let this D be your pen and you try to draw, like you have a compass. You have a compass with fixed radius. This ADD is the string. Okay? And you are simply stretching it like this. You are drawing it with a pen. Like you draw with a compass. In a compass, one point is fixed. Here, 2 points are fixed. And you have a fixed length. Okay? Now, if you rotate that thing, you will get an ellipse. Is this clear? You can try this at your home. Just you take that stitching, I mean that you have that stitching shuta jetake bole. You take that, you fix it by sellotape or by means of something. Yes, thread. You take a thread of a fixed length. You fix it at 2 points. Now you take a pen and you take the pen at this point D. You just stretch the thread so that the thread is not loose. And then you try to draw a shape. What will come out is an ellipse. Is this clear? So these 2 points, what you are seeing, these 2 points are called the foci. Okay, these are called the foci. This is one focus, this is another focus. So it is said, Kepler's first law says that the planet are moving around the sun with the sun at one of its foci, at any one of it. You keep it in any one of it because the mathematics is going to turn out to be same. So a planet moves somewhat like this. Do you want to see any animation of this?
Yes, sir.
Better, na? I know you people are fan of animations. Well, to be honest, I myself am a fan of animation. Who does not like animated contents? Tell me one person, one student who does not like. So let me draw an ellipse. X square by 9 plus y square by 4 is equal to 1. This is an ellipse. Okay? This is the equation of an ellipse, yes. Okay. So now let me pick up one of its foci. Let me calculate 1 minute. Let me calculate the foci of the ellipse. No. This is not how you can say. The eccentricity is 1 minus 4 by 9. That is root 5 by 3. So AE is the ellipse. That means 3 into root 5. Root 5 is, that means 2.232 is the ellipse. So a point A is minus square root of 5 comma 0, and the other is B, that is root 5 square root of 5 comma 0. These are the two foci. Are you getting my point? Now
Yes.
suppose this is the sun. The sun is at one of the foci. Let me denote it by S. Okay. Let me delete this chap. Let it be only on one foci, okay? Now it looks better. Now let's take an earth. So this is an earth. You are seeing. Let me color it green or green planet. Okay. Blue planet, correct. So sun is the color I need to change. Red hot. Okay. So now this is how a planet moves around the sun. Is that clear to you?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
This is the statement of Kepler's first law. But Kepler's first law says that the orbit is elliptical with the sun at its foci and the planet is rotating around it. Is the first law crystal clear? Yes, any one of the foci you keep it. The sun would always stay here.
For the case of what it is in right side or left side?
Does not matter. It just depends on from which side do you see. If you see from this side, it will be on the right. If you see from that side, it will be on the left. Okay? It does not matter. Okay. Now coming to the second law of Kepler, or the second equation, not equation, the second statement of Kepler's law, that is, this is important. The line joining the planet and the sun sweep equal areas in equal intervals of time. Do you know what that means? That means the line joining the earth and the sun. So this is the earth, this is the sun. Can I say that this is the line joining the sun and the earth? Okay. So now this sweeps some area, isn't it so? In a particular time, this sweeps some area. Am I clear? Okay, okay, fine. Okay. So basically, suppose in 1 second it goes somewhere here. Okay. And in the next 1 second, suppose it goes somewhere here. So the area that is swept in the two cases is the same. Area swept means, suppose it is here initially. Initially it is here. And now, let me show the trace of this line if it is possible. So this is the entire area. Are you trying to understand this?
Yes.
Suppose this is the area swept in 1 second. And in the next 1 second, this is the area that is swept. So these two areas will be equal. Okay? Is that clear to you?
Yes, sir.
This is the area in 1 second, suppose, and this is the area in the next 1 second. So these two areas will be the same. Am I clear? This is the statement of Kepler's second law. And Kepler's third law is what inspired Isaac Newton to draw that formula. What does Kepler's third law say? At the cube of mean distance of a planet from the sun is proportional. You must take care of the lines that I am writing here properly. Proportional to the square of its orbital period. What does it mean? That means, suppose the mean distance of the planet. Now, at this point the distance is different. At this point the distance is different. At this point the distance is different. Okay? Taking the average of all these distances. Okay? Taking the average of all these distances. Taking the average of all this distance is what is the mean distance. The cube of that is proportional to the time taken for complete one motion. I mean, if it starts from here, the time taken by this to come back to this position. Done. Okay, this time that is taken, this is capital T. Are you getting this point? The cube of mean distance is proportional to the square of the time period. This is for every planet. For any planet, a planet having the mean distance twice would have the time period according to this law. This is peculiar, this is interesting, and from here Newton derived that inverse square law. Okay? Is this clear to you? If somebody asks you, how did Newton get the inspiration for Kepler's inverse square law? You would say from this. What Kepler's inverse square? For the inverse square law in universal law of gravitation, you would say it is from the Kepler's third law. Is that clear to you? Good. Very good. Now we learned quite some things right now. So what is the importance of universal law of gravitation? I don't think now I need to tell you. I told you the importance of law of gravitation much before, right? What is it? Tell me any such things which you can study, with this inverse square law. This universal law of gravitation. Tell me any other use of universal law of gravitation. Yes, something different. Tell something different. What can you say?
Get some time to think.
Yes, please. Shurjandu, having anything in mind?
So it can also be used
No, 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 not. No, 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 not like that.
Please help us to find the gravitational force.
That to everybody knows. Anything special? Okay, then whatever the tides happening. Okay, the tides that are happening, the moon, the eclipses that are happening, how the force is there, how the force is interconnected. All these things can be known by this. If you know the force, if you know the mass, you can calculate the distance. Basically, this is the parameter that relates all these things. Okay. This completes one part of this gravitation, the main part of it. The following parts that we'll be studying right now would be just applications to that. One of them is called as free fall. I think you may have heard the name of free fall. Okay. So let's see this. What is free fall? Especially in regards, in context to Earth, we are talking this. Suppose this is our lovely home. Now, if any object is propelled only by the gravitational force between the Earth and the object and nothing else, then that object is said to be in free fall. When the only force that is acting on the object is the gravitational force of the planet, this planet Earth, then that object is said to be in free fall.
So no air is.
Virtually not.
But if it comes under the
It comes. It is not perfect free fall, and that's where the need for approximations. Are you getting my point? We have approximate studies for everything, just like this. These are all about approximations. Okay? Did you understand the phenomenon, the mechanism of free fall?
Yes.
Is the definition clear? So basically, whatever happens, free fall, we cannot see free fall because there is an air resistance involved always. Are you getting my point? But you can experience free fall for certain moments. Yes, like in moon, you would be experiencing perfect free fall. Okay, but in Venus you cannot experience. Venus has a very dense atmosphere. So in moon you can experience a perfect free fall. But in Earth we have these atmospheric conditions, but still these are quite accurate calculations. Especially, have you ever been into a Ferris wheel?
What the
Merry-go-round? Yes.
no, sir.
So in that Nagarjuna, in some moments, just when it is coming down, for some moments, 1 or 1.5 seconds, you experience that free fall. Because there is no considerable air resistance and it just falls like that. You just feel weightless. You feel weightless because there is no normal force acting on you. Okay? Anyways. So this phenomenon is called as free fall. So the moment we do any kind of calculation here, we would ignore the air resistance thoroughly. Okay? By that, let us try to develop some mathematics with free fall. So, suppose the mass of the Earth is capital M and the mass of this small puchki ball or any object is small m. Okay? Now, Olivia, can you tell me the gravitational force between these two objects if the radius of the Earth is capital R and the distance is smaller, distance between the surface of the Earth and this mass? Tell me the expression for gravitational force in this situation. Gravitational force experienced by this mass. If you keep on telling, then what will happen to the other students who want to be a part? No. You messed it up. It is Gm1 m2 by r square. But here the distance is what? Can anybody rectify that? R plus r whole square. The distance is always from one center to the other center, isn't it so? But let us create an approximate picture of that, which is a very good approximation. This is the earth. And here the object will be somewhat here. This is even much more. This height is much more. It will be much lesser than this height when you throw an object, isn't it so? So if you take the radius of this would be insignificant, this small r. So this small r is as good as 0. Are you getting my point? So this force, these approximations, no, those things we don't consider here. Okay, we are here talking only about free fall here, just within a small, for practical purposes. Are you getting my point? Nobody is throwing you from exosphere. That time we cannot apply these calculations. The calculation for that will be available in class 11. There is yet another chapter in gravitation. Okay, can I safely write this? So this is the force that Chutki mass is experiencing. Is that not mg? This is the weight. So can I equate it equal to mg? This is the mass. I mean, this is the force that this mass experiences, isn't it so? By the earth. Also, can you not say that the force that this object will experience because of earth can be written in the form of ma, where a is the gravitational acceleration here? These two are equal. These two are the same thing. Not yes, 9.8 wala, but this is the gravitational acceleration, because forces is equal to mass into acceleration. So this is the acceleration caused by gravity. Can I not write like this? Here you see small m gets cancelled. You are left with g is equal to gm by r square. This is valid for any planet. See, our gravitational acceleration is 1. The moon, the gravitational acceleration of the moon is different. Mars is different. Venus is different. You have a formula for all of that. You plug in the mass, you plug in the radius of that planet, and you get the gravitational acceleration. Plugging the value of mass of the earth and radius of the earth, you can find this value to be 9.81 meter per second square approximately. Are you understanding from where this idea came? From where this value of g came? Yes, surely I would. So see, please understand this. Do you know what is weight? Weight is the force. Weight is the force that the earth exerts on us. Okay? Weight is the force that the earth exerts on us. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Now force is equal to mass times acceleration, is not it so? We take the acceleration here as acceleration due to gravity, because this is a special one. This is by the earth. Now this is the same force as obtained by universal law of gravitation, isn't it so? This is the expression of force that we have got from universal law of gravitation, and this we have the definition from Newton's second law. Are these not the same thing? Are you getting it? Everybody? Okay. Good. Let me come up to here, because I think you understand things better here.
It is the final.
I see. You are naughty people, so what can I do? Are you seeing this point C?
Yes. Yes.
Suppose this is a ball, okay? This will fall like this. Let me restrict this a little bit. See, this is how an object falls. Are you seeing the speed increasing?
Yes.
This is the example of an accelerated motion. I have shown you the slow motion diagram of this. Okay. Can you appreciate this fact that this body is falling because of gravitational force?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you also say that the gravitational force is equal to mg, because force is equal to ma? Here the acceleration is due to gravity. Can you say this?
Yes, yes.
So just remember the gravitational force on this calculated. Wait a minute. Wait. Wait a minute, let me explain this. So this means that I think you can appreciate that the gravitational force on this is mg, correct? But the gravitational force on this is also gmm by r squared. Are you seeing this? This is by universal law of gravitation, and both are equal because both means the same thing. I consider two different approaches for getting to the same concept. That's all. Am I clear?
Small letter g means acceleration.
Small g means acceleration due to gravity. Capital G means the universal gravitational constant. Small g is the acceleration due to gravity. As you know that if I leave this tablet, this will fall with an acceleration of g, small g. If I leave this will fall with an acceleration of small g. If I take Bishesh and throw him out of the window, he will fall with an acceleration of small g. Okay? If you throw a boomerang, it will fall down with an acceleration of g, small g. So this is the observation that I wanted to explain. See, small m cancels out. That shows that the gravitational acceleration does not depend on what you are releasing. Are you getting my point? It only depends on the planet on which you are in. Is that clear? Yes. The gravitational acceleration is totally independent. Yes. Capital G is the constant that makes the universal law of gravitation valid. Please understand. And this is just an acceleration. The acceleration that a planet will offer under its gravitational force. Do you get me? You put the mass of Mercury and the radius of Mercury, you get the rate at which object will fall on Mercury, the acceleration due to gravity on Mercury. Are you getting my point? Are you not getting what gravitational acceleration is? I think the first chapter had been a little loose on you. That's the reason why you are stuck here like this. See, you were seeing that the object was speeding up when it was going down. This is due to acceleration. Now, any force, it changes the velocity. It either increases or decreases it. When the force and the velocity are in the same direction, the velocity increases. This is called as acceleration. The rate in which velocity increases is called as acceleration. Do you get my point? Earth gives a particular acceleration as a result of which a feather and an iron ball will drop at the same rate. This is the brilliance of this. This equation shows the experiment. This equation is the complete explanation for that experiment, which is otherwise counterintuitive in nature. Are you getting my point? Okay. Now, you can do the same things that we have done in chapter 1 in motion in this gravitation also. In chapter 1 motion, you had a car which had been accelerated, which went a certain displacement, which took a certain time, isn't it so? Can you remember the equations of motion? Wait. Olivia, say one equation of motion. Problems you solved very little. Oh, motion completely. Okay, we shall go through that. No worries. But for the time being, let's focus on this. So now, you had this for any constant acceleration, right? Now, if an object is under the influence of Earth's acceleration, you can simply change all of them to u plus gt. S is equal to ut plus half gt square, and v square is equal to u square plus 2 gs. Does not matter. We actually represent displacement by s. Whatever you write, it does not matter, Bishesh. It is not the terminologies which matter. It is the context in which you do this, okay? If I write here instead of s, if I write dabbadol, then also it is valid. Just that I have to define what dabbadol is. Are you getting my point? There is no argument about this. What is the definitions of this and that and blah and blah. What should make sense to me should also make sense to you. So you make up whatever variables you want. That does not matter at all. So now, under the influence of gravitational acceleration, you can use these formulas. Okay? How to use these formulas? In the same way as you have used it in motion. Now it is all G when it is in the gravitational zone. Suppose you have an object, suppose you have a tower, and you want to do Galileo's experiment but with only one apple in your hand. So here is the beautiful apple. Not an Apple MacBook, just an apple. There are people who are throwing Apple MacBooks as well nowadays. Anyway, you released it from rest. I guess Bishesh did it for finding the height of his flat. So if the height is 25 meters, find the time it would take to hit the ground. Given G is equal to 10 meter per second square. Everybody please solve this, or at least try to solve this. You have to find the time taken for the apple to just hit the ground. How come you all come up with different answers? See, here from I am teaching you. So let me try to come at it from the scale of learning. How do we approach this problem? Approaching a problem in physics is the easiest at this level. It's very easy. What do? You first take a note of what is given to you. The height of the building is 25 meters. That signifies that the apple has to fall a distance of 25 meters. Is this clear? So the displacement is 25 meters is given. The acceleration g is given to be 10 meter per second square. The initial velocity, because you are just dropping the ball, the initial velocity is 0 meter per second. You have to find out the time. Which equation caters to these four expressions? Can you see that this is the second one? Can you see this? The third one also has this s, but it does not have this time. I cannot find time with this. I can find out time with only this formula involving the displacement. So if you put it in this formula, s is equal to ut plus half gt square. U is 0. So s is simply half gt square. So that means 25 is equal to half into 10 into t square. So t square is equal to 5 second. That means t is equal to root 5 second. It is going to take almost 2.23 second. 2 minutes and 23 milliseconds. Are you getting this? No, 2.5 is not going to come simply because of this. That's enough. That's enough. I just wanted to give you a feel of what root 5 is, that's why. 2.23 second, you intuitively know how much is it. But root 5, it is a little difficult first. Okay. So this is the reverse process that Bishesh applied to find the height of his flat. What Bishesh did is, he knew the time here, but he did not know the displacement. So the same formula he applied. Oh, is it? So it is approximately of this order. So approximately the height would be of this order, a little more than that. 27 meters? 25.3 meters. Okay. Anyways, this is how you solve the problems. Are you getting my point, everybody? Now suppose solve one more problem. Always for solving the problems in physics, see what parameters are given in the question and accordingly you solve by using the appropriate formula. Suppose I have a ball in my hand and I'm just throwing it up with a velocity of 20 meter per second. Find the time taken to reach its peak and find the maximum height reached. You have two parts to this question. Solve it. Nah, 20 meter per second. How can 20 meter per second be the gravity? Tell yourself. This is a velocity, initial velocity that is offered. Gravity g is 10 meter per second square, unless stated otherwise. Good. Let's check it out. Let's check it out. So once again, I'm going to approach this question from the absolute fundamentals. Okay, the way you are supposed to approach any physics problem. See, if you make your base strong from now, when you get to class 11, things will be like water flowing. But if you don't have the concepts strong right now, you'll be facing a lot of difficulties going to class 11. That's why I'm telling, approach from the absolute basics. It is not important that you come up with an answer. It is important that you have an unique method to solve the problem that you understand. Are you getting my point? This is the way in which I think. It does not matter whether you are correct in your answer, whether you are wrong in your answer. It really does not matter. What all matters is how well you thought to find out a solution. A scientist, the mind of a scientist is never inclined towards finding correct or wrong answer. The mind of a scientist is involved in finding insights, finding ways to solve. Are you getting my point? I would be more interested in the ways in which you solve. Bishesh told me that day, sir, I have found out a way to find the height of the building like this. I discussed it with the students of class 11. This is how innovative thoughts I always encourage. Yes, Olivia. Here, if we approach the problem from its absolute fundamentals, we have a situation where the velocity is up, but the gravitational pull, the gravitational acceleration is down. So this is a classic case of deceleration. It is the classic case of deceleration in the first case. Okay. So G will be minus 10 only if you consider this direction to be positive. Suppose this direction is positive. At its peak point, I know that the final velocity will be 0 meter per second. So what information I have? I have initial velocity, I have final velocity, I have G. Okay, I need to find the time right now. So for finding the time involving these three, I have V is equal to U plus GT, but here G is minus 10 meter per second square. So here V is 0, final velocity is 0, initial velocity is 20 minus 10t. So you have t is equal to 2 seconds. 2 seconds only for going up. Is this clear? Now in this 2 seconds, how much has it traveled? I would get by the formula S is equal to half gt square. You can also use V square is equal to U square minus 2gs to get that separately. Okay, that was also give you. But I have found out the time. Why not use this formula? So here the displacement would be S is equal to, sorry, not half gt square, I'm wrong. ut plus half gt square. I was thinking. So u is initial velocity 20 into time is 2 seconds minus half into g is 10 and t time is 2 seconds. So 2 square once again. So it's 40 minus 20 meter, that is 20 meters. Is that clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
This is how you approach this simple problem from the basics. There is going to be no complicated problems, believe me. This is how the problems are going to be. Okay. So here I end today's lecture on gravitation. This pretty much completes half of the chapter especially.